Vishnupar Ashtarashatashmat Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupar Ashtarashatashmat Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupar Ashtarashatashmat Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupar Ashtarashatashmat Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishtam Vishnupar Ashtarashatashmar Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Bhagavat Srila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Pavishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadas Raghunath Shar Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaur Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Ki Jai. Shri Amuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Vo. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Itadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam pravrajantam anupetam apeta krityam dvaipayano viraha katara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo bhinedus tang sarva bhuta hridayam munimanatosmi. Narayanam namaskrityam narang chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet. Shrinvatang Svakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantastoya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suritsatam Nashta Prayeshvavadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantikam Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshai Kshiptashtakama Madhe Kripa Mai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Charana Ravindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Alright, so we're reading from 36. Let me just find that. There we are. Alright, let's see who's here now. Haribo, Raseshwari Mataji, Dandavat Pranams Indira Mataji, and Prajumna Prabhu, and Mantramurti Mataji, and Rup Manjari Didi. Haribo. Yeah, my Vrinda Devi's feeling like she got attacked by monkeys a while ago, but she's kind of back to how she was before now. A little less bushy though, because they ripped off a lot of her branches, and yeah, it's really sad. Dandavat Pranams Gargaraji. Alright, so let's do a little recap. I finally scanned the books. I scanned the 7th canto, Bhagavatsugothini, and the 8th canto one. So if anybody wants that, I guess I'll just send it in our WhatsApp group. Alright, so the Supreme Lord is equal to everyone. First chapter. First, Pariksha inquires about the Lord's apparent partiality, because in the 6th canto. At the end of the 6th canto, it was mentioned that Diti burned with anger and lamentation when her two sons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakasipu, were killed by Lord Viṣṇu, being instigated by Indra. This apparently indicates that the Supreme Lord is partial to the demigods and inimical towards the demons. Parikshit Maharaj, as if not tolerating the partiality of Viṣṇu in favoring Indra, inquired from Shukadeva Goswami about this. Actually, Parikshit Maharaj understands the truth, but he desired to relish the nectar of the conclusion from the mouth of Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, he asked this question. What's the question he asks? He says, Lord Viṣṇu is pure, equal, dear and friendly to everyone. So how does he kill the demons and favor the demigods? Then Shukadeva Goswami gives a philosophical answer. He says, this is a wonderful question about Bhagavan, Bhagavat, and Bhakti. Bhagavat refers to the devotee. Lord Viṣṇu is the controller of the 3 modes. People flourish according to the prominences of modes, under the influence of time, but the Lord is not partial. Yudiṣṭira asked Nārada about the Lord's. So then Shukadeva Goswami begins telling the story of Yudhiṣṭira Maharaj asking Nārada about the Lord's mercy on the demons. And this conversation between Yudhiṣṭira and Nārada will go throughout the whole 7th canto. So Yudhiṣṭira asks, at the Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhiṣṭira, Lord Krishna beheaded envious Sisupala, who then merged into the Lord's body. So Yudhiṣṭira asked Nārada Muni, how could the envious Sisupala be liberated? Then Nārada Muni describes the glory of absorption in Krishna. Let's read from this point, because I think we haven't read from here yet. 23. Nārada Muni describes the glory of absorption in Krishna. The material body is meant to experience dualities. So this is Nārada speaking, the material body is meant to experience dualities of blasphemy, praise, honor, and dishonor, which are created due to ignorance under the influence of external energy. The conditioned soul identifies with the body and its belongings, the conception of mamaham, or mine and I. And thus, he is subjected to dualities of praise and chastisements, and considers people to be friends and enemies. the Supreme Lord has no material body, so he is unaffected by material dualities of praise and blasphemy. His reciprocation with devotees and demons is only for their good. The Lord's body is non-different. There's a note here. The Lord's body is non-different from him. As Paramatma, he stays in everyone's body, but doesn't identify with the body. And the Lord is unaffected by dualities. He is indifferent to acquisitions or accusations. Anyways, he is not subject to the suffering of being blasphemed and the enjoyment of being praised. Link. Since the Lord is unaffected by criticism or praise, can one blaspheme him? No. If one criticizes the Lord, he will get bad karma, as said in the next verse indirectly. Just bad karma? It's not... Anyways. Okay, somehow, concentrates the mind on the Lord. Therefore, by enmity, or by devotion, or by fear, or by affection, or by lust, one should focus on the Lord somehow. The Lord is not affected. Right? Is that he referring to the Lord? I can't even tell. Anyways. Yeah, the Lord is not affected. So there are five, there's a note here. There are 5 types of emotion towards the Lord, and they are mentioned in this verse. Vaira means continuous enmity that leads to absorption of Krishna. Example is Kamsa and Sisupala. Next is Nirvaira, which means without enmity or with bhakti, which an example is the parents of Krishna. Bhayena means with lust with fear. Interesting. An example is the gopis who feared rejecting moral codes. And then bhayena va means without lust or fear, but the example here is the married lover Rukmini. And then kam, that's lust generated by prem, sneha. This is interesting. I'm not totally sure about this. Maybe this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, but kam would be the example of the gopis, wouldn't it? Anyways. Criticism to absorption. One who criticizes Krishna is purified if his criticism leads to continuous remembrance and absorption in the Lord. But if one's criticism doesn't lead to such absorption, it creates bad karma, and the criticizer goes to hell. So you can only criticize Krishna if that's all you do. But if you just criticize a bit, then you're going to hell. But if you criticize him constantly, then you'll be purified. Recommendation. Although the Lord is unaffected by criticism and the criticizer is purified, criticism is not a recommendation. What is recommended is favorable, anukul, devotional service, and not purposeful blasphemy. If uttering the Lord's name with a negative emotion is purifying, then what to speak of favorable chanting? 2 types of criticism of the Lord. There's favorable criticism and unfavorable criticism. So favorable criticism is a transformation of prem, like the gopis. But unfavorable criticism rises from absorption in the Lord, example Sisupala. But by that, unfavorable criticism, bad karma is destroyed by absorption. But there's another kind of unfavorable criticism which doesn't rise from absorption. Oh, it has to arise from absorption. Yeah, okay. Jaya and Vijay were ordained to blaspheme the Lord, for 3 lives. Enmity leads to more absorption in the Lord than through devotional service. Narada's humility. This is notes. Yeah, that's interesting, huh? Enmity leads to more absorption in the Lord than through devotional service. But there's a note here. This is Narada's humility. Narada, being a pure devotee, feels himself deficient in his absorption in Krishna, and thus he says that the envious demons are more intensely absorbed in the Lord. This, however, shouldn't be taken literally. Absorption in the thought of Krishna is an essential point conveyed in this verse. If an envious mind can be so absorbed in the Lord, what then can be said of a devotee's mind? Constant thinking of Krishna, either with devotion or enmity, frees one from all sins and enables one to regain spiritual bodies, just as a grassworm turns into a bee by constant meditation on the bee. Liberation by thinking of Krishna in any way. By lust, hatred, fear, and affection, or devotion, thinking of Krishna in the mind, with absorption, and thus giving up sin or hatred, many attained liberation. Alright, there's a note here. When the mind is somehow or other fully absorbed in Krishna, the material part is very soon vanquished, and the spiritual part, attraction to Krishna, becomes manifest. Link. The next verse gives examples of personalities who exhibited the emotions towards Krishna mentioned in the previous verse. People attained Krishna in various ways. The gopis by conjugal desires for Krishna, Kamsa by fear that Krishna will kill him, Sisupala and other kings by envy of Krishna, the Yadavas and you, the Pandavas, by affectionate family relation with Krishna, and we, general devotees like Nārada, by bhakti. The calm of the gopis is actually prem, or pure spiritual love for Krishna without any material tinges. The gopis' calm is like gold, while Kubja's calm is like iron. Kamsa attained Sayujya Mukti, merging into the Lord. Sisupala, Dantavakra, and Pondrak attained Sarupya Mukti, having the same form as the Lord. Okay. We must somehow concentrate the mind on Krishna. The atheistic King Vain didn't think of Krishna in any of the above 5 ways, and thus he didn't get salvation. Therefore, somehow or other, one should focus the mind on Lord Krishna. But there's a footnote here. Focusing the mind on Krishna with a favorable mood is the recommendation. Okay, link. Having described the significance of absorption in Krishna with love or hatred, Nārada Muni will now address Yudhiṣṭira Maharaja's concern in verse 19. Sisupala and Dantavakra were formerly associates of Lord Viṣṇu, named Jaya and Vijay. Being cursed by Brahmanas, they came to this world as demons. Then Nārada narrates the curse and 3 births of Jaya and Vijay. Maharaja Yudhiṣṭira asked, "This is unbelievable. What curse could affect the servants of Lord Viṣṇu? They are exclusively dedicated to the Lord, and their bodies are purely spiritual. How could they fall to the material world? Please describe the curse that caused this." Now there's a note here. The associates of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world descends to the material world for the purpose of fulfilling the Lord's desire. Their descent is comparable to the Lord's descent, and it is an action of spiritual energy. Jai and Vijay came to this material world to fulfill the Lord's desire to fight. Now Nārada Muni describes the story of Jai and Vijay. Let's read from here now. We'll begin. Dandavat pranams Madhavi Didi. Oh, and whoever is watching from from the Gaudiya Kirtan live page, I'm reading from a book called Bhagavatsugothini. It was done by this devotee named Gauranga Darshan Prabhu, and it's published by Tulsi Books. It's really helpful. Okay. Shri Nārada Uvacha Ekada Brahmana Putra Viṣṇu Lokam Yadrichaya Sanandana Dayo Jagmush Charanto Bhuvanatrayam. The great saint Nārada said, "Once upon a time, when the 4 sons of Lord Brahma, named Sanak, Sanandan, Sanatan, and Sanat Kumar, were wandering throughout the 3 worlds, they came by chance to Viṣṇu Loka. Panchashadhayanarbhabha Purvesham api purvaja Digvasasa shishun matva Dvastotan pratyashedatam. Although these four great sages were older than Brahma's other sons, like Marichi, they appeared like small naked children, only 5 or 6 years old. When Jaya and Vijay saw them trying to enter Vaikuntha Loka, these two gatekeepers, thinking them ordinary children, forbade them to enter. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this regard, Srila Madhvacharya says in his Tantra Sar, Dvastav ityanena dhikaras statvam uktam adhikaras stitaschaiva vimuktascha dvida jana Viṣṇu loka stitastesham varashapadi yogina adhikaras stitam muktim niyatam prapnuvanti cha vimuktyanantaram tesham varashapadayo nanu tehendriya suyuktascha purvam paschan natar yukta apyabhiman bhishtesham devai swatmotamar yuta. The purport is that the personal associates of Lord Viṣṇu in Vaikuntha Loka are always liberated souls. Even if sometimes cursed or blessed, they are always liberated and never contaminated by the material modes of nature. Before their liberation to Vaikuntha Loka, they possessed material bodies, but once they came to Vaikuntha, they no longer have them. Therefore, even if the associates of Lord Viṣṇu sometimes descend as if cursed, they are always liberated. I'm so completely confused by the arguments that we fell from Vaikuntha. I mean, Srila Prabhupada, everywhere, he writes the complete opposite. Anyways, like, how could you take that as, does that mean that everybody, that means that we are liberated also? Like, we're already, it's just ridiculous. Anyway, sorry. I'm just thinking about this because I've been in a whole conversation with somebody about this, who thinks that we fell from Vaikuntha. Ashapan kupita evam yuvam vasam nacharhata rajastamo bhyam rahite padamole madudvisha papishtam asurim yonim balisho yatamashvata. Thus checked by the doorkeepers Jai and Vijay, Sanandan and the other great sages very angrily cursed them. You too, foolish doorkeepers, they said, being agitated by the material qualities of passion and ignorance, you are unfit to live at the shelter of Marudvisha's lotus feet, which are free from such modes. It would be better for you to go immediately to the material world and take your birth in a family of most sinful asuras. Evam shapto sabhavanat patanto to kripalubhi prokto punar janma bhirvang tribhir lokaya kalpatam. While Jai and Vijay, thus cursed by the sages, were falling to the material world, they were addressed as follows by the same sages, who were very kind to them. O doorkeepers, after 3 births, you will be able to return to your positions in Vaikuntha, for then the duration of the curse will have ended. Jagyate to dite putro daitya danava vandito Hiranyakasipu jeshto Hiranyaksha nujastata. These 2 associates of the Lord, Jai and Vijay, later descended to the material world, taking birth as the 2 sons of Diti, Hiranyakasipu being the elder and Hiranyaksha the younger. They were very much respected by the Daitas and Danavs, the demoniac species. Hato Hiranyakasipu harina singharupina Hiranyaksha daro dhare vibhrata shokaram vapu. Appearing as Nrsimhadev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Hari, killed Hiranyakasipu. When the Lord delivered the planet Earth, which had fallen into the Garbhodaka ocean, Hiranyaksha tried to hinder him, and then the Lord, as Varaha, killed Hiranyaksha. Hiranyakasipu putram prahlādam keshava priyam jigangsur akaram nana yatana mrituhetave. Desiring to kill his son Prahlāda, who was a great devotee of Lord Viṣṇu, Hiranyakasipu tortured him in many ways. Tang sarva bhutatma bhutam prashantam samadarshanam bhagavate jasa sprishtam nashaknud dhantumudhyamai. The Lord, the supersoul of all living entities, is sober, peaceful, and equal to everyone. Since the great devotee Prahlāda was protected by the Lord's potency, Hiranyakasipu was unable to kill him, in spite of endeavoring to do so in various ways. Purport. In this verse, the word Sarvabhutatma Bhutanam is very significant. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hriddesharjuna Tishtati, Bhagavad Gita 1861. The Lord is equally situated in the core of everyone's heart. Thus, he cannot be envious of anyone or friendly to anyone. For him, everyone is the same. Although he is sometimes seen to punish someone, this is exactly like a father's punishing his child for the child's welfare. The Supreme Lord's punishment is also a manifestation of the Lord's equality. Therefore, the Lord is described as Prashantam Samadarshanam. Although the Lord has to execute his will properly, he is equipoised in all circumstances. He is equally disposed toward everyone. Tatasto rakshaso jato keshiyam vishrava Ravana Kumbhakarnascha sarvaloko patapano. Thereafter, the same Jaya and Vijay, the two doorkeepers of Lord Viṣṇu, took birth as Ravana and Kumbhakarna, begotten by Vishrava in the womb of Keshini. They were extremely troublesome to all the people of the universe. Tatrapi Raghavo Bhutva Nyahanach Chapa Muktaye Rama Viryam Shashyasitvam Markandeya Mukhat Prabhu. Nārada Muni continued, My dear king, just to relieve Jai and Vijay of the Brahman's curse, Lord Ramachandra appeared in order to kill Ravana and Kumbhakarna. It will be better for you to hear narrations about Lord Ramachandra's activities from Markandeya. Tavatra kshatriyo jato matri svasratmajo tava adhuna shapanir mukto Krishna chakra hatanghaso. In their third birth, the same Jai and Vijay appeared in a family of kshatriyas as your cousins, the sons of your aunt. Because Lord Krishna has struck them with his disc, all their sinful reactions have been destroyed, and now they are free from the curse. Purport. In their last birth, Jai and Vijay did not become demons or rakshasas. Instead, they took birth in a very exalted Kshatriya family related to Krishna's family. They became first cousins of Lord Krishna and were practically on an equal footing with him. By personally killing them with his own disc, Lord Krishna destroyed whatever sinful reactions were left in them because of the curse of the Brahmans. Nārada Muni explained to Maharaja Yudhiṣṭira that by entering Krishna's body, Sisupala re-entered Vaikuntha-loka as the Lord's associate. Everyone had seen this incident. Vairānubandha tivrena dhyanena chuta satmatam nito punar hare parshvam jagmatur Viṣṇu parshado. These two associates of Lord Viṣṇu, Jai and Vijay, maintained a feeling of enmity for a very long time. Because of always thinking of Krishna in this way, they regained the shelter of the Lord, having returned home back to Godhead. Purport. Whatever their position, certainly Jai and Vijay always thought of Krishna. Therefore, at the end of the Mausala Lila, these two associates of the Lord returned to Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's body and Narayan's body. Therefore, although they visibly entered the body of Krishna, they actually re-entered Vaikuntha-loka as the doorkeepers of Lord Viṣṇu. Through Lord Krishna's body, they returned to Vaikuntha, although they seem to have attained Sayuja Mukti in Krishna's body. Shri Yudhiṣṭira Vacha Vidvesha Daite Putre Katam Asin Mahatmani Bruhi Me Bhagavanyena Prahlādasya Chutatmana Mata. Sorry, I'm going to read the Sanskrit slower from now on. I forgot. Maharaja Yudhiṣṭira inquired, O my lord, Nārada Muni, why was there such enmity between Hiranyakasipu and his beloved son Prahlāda Maharaj? How did Prahlāda Maharaj become such a great devotee of Lord Krishna? Kindly explain this to me. Purport. All the devotees of Lord Krishna are called Achyutatma because they follow in the footsteps of Prahlāda Maharaj. Achyuta refers to the infallible Lord Viṣṇu, whose heart is always infallible. Because the devotees are attached to the infallible, they are called Achyutatma. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 7th canto, 1st chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled The Supreme Lord is Equal to Everyone. Oh, and I think Indira Mataji sent pictures for this, right? Yes, she did. Here's a picture. Let me just download this. 1 second. Download. Open. Alright. So first, here's Krishna cutting off Sisupala's head. And now is the Kumāras. There's the Kumāras cursing Jai and Vijay. Alright. Okay, so let's begin the 2nd chapter. I think we're reading up to verse 12, right? Hiranyakasipu, king of the demons. Oh, I forgot to do, when I did the Mangalacharna, I forgot to do Nrsimhadev. Ito Nrsimho, Parato Nrsimho, Yato Yamitato Nrsimho, Bahir Nrsimho, Hridaya Nrsimho, Nrsimhamadim Sharanam Prapade. I need to add that to the Mangalacharna we do so I don't forget. As described in this chapter, after the annihilation of Hiranyaksha, Hiranyaksha's sons and his brother Hiranyakasipu were very much aggrieved. Hiranyakasipu reacted very sinfully by trying to diminish the religious activities of people in general. However, he instructed his nephew about a history just to diminish the aggrievement. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as the boar and killed Hiranyakasipu's brother Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakasipu was very much aggrieved. In anger, he accused the Supreme Personality of Godhead of being partial to his devotees, and derided the Lord's appearance as Varaha to kill his brother. He began to agitate all the demons and rakshasas and disturb the ritualistic ceremonies of the peaceful sages and other inhabitants of earth. For want of the performance of yajna, sacrifice, the demigods began wandering unseen on earth. After finishing the ritualistic funeral ceremonies of his brother, Hiranyakasipu began speaking to his nephews, quoting from the Shastras about the truth of life. To pacify them, he spoke as follows. My dear nephews, for heroes to die before the enemy is glorious. According to their different fruitive activities, living entities come together within this material world and are again separated by the laws of nature. We should always know, however, that the spirit soul, which is different from the body, is eternal, unadjustable, pure, all-pervading, and aware of everything. When bound by the material energy, the soul takes birth in higher or lower species of life according to varying association, and in this way receives various types of bodies in which to suffer or enjoy. One's affliction by the conditions of material existence is the cause of happiness and distress. There are no other causes, and one should not be aggrieved upon seeing the superficial actions of karma. Some good instructions. Hiranyakasipu then related a historical incident concerning a king Suyagya who resided in the country named Ushinar. When the king was killed, his queens, overwhelmed with grief, received instructions, which Hiranyakashipu quoted to his nephews. Hiranyakashipu related an account of a kolinga bird pierced by the arrow of a hunter while lamenting for his wife, who had also been shot by the same hunter. By narrating these stories, Hiranyakashipu pacified his nephews and other relatives and relieved them of lamentation. Thus, having been pacified, Diti and Rushabhanu, Hiranyakashipu's mother and sister-in-law, engaged their minds in spiritual understanding. Shri Narada Urvacha. Oh, and I just want to make sure that I'm actually the speaker here is, this microphone is actually what I have set. Vaisheshekha Prabhu speaks from Hiranyakashipu's sermon to his nephews a lot. Cool. Shri Narada Vacha Bhrattare Vyamvinihate Harinakrodamurtina Hiranyakashipu Rajan Paryaptapyar Rusha Shucha. Shri Nārada Muni said, "My dear King Yudiṣṭira, when Lord Viṣṇu, in the form of Varaha, the boar, killed Hiranyaksha, Hiranyaksha's brother Hiranyakashipu was extremely angry and began to lament." Purport. Yudhiṣṭira had inquired from Nārada Muni why Hiranyakashipu was so envious of his own son Prahlāda. Nārada Muni began narrating the story by explaining how Hiranyakashipu had become a staunch enemy of Lord Viṣṇu. Aha chedam rusha purna sandashta dashana chada kopa dvyaladbhyam chakshurbhyam nirikshan dumram ambaram. Filled with rage and biting his lips, Hiranyakashipu gazed at the sky with eyes that blazed in anger, making the whole sky smoky. Thus he began to speak. Purport. As usual, the demon is envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and inimical toward him. These were Hiranyakashipu's external bodily features, as he considered how to kill Lord Viṣṇu and devastate his kingdom, Vaikuntha Loka. Karala dangshtrodrishtya dushpreksha brukuti mukha shulam udyamya sadasi Danavan idamabravit. Exhibiting his terrible teeth, fierce glance, and frowning eyebrows, terrible to see, he took up his weapon, a trident, and thus began speaking to his associates, the assembled demons. Bobo danavadaiteya dvimurdhangs Traksha Shambara Shata Baho Hayagriva Namuche Pakailvala Viprachitte Mama Vacha Puloman Shakunadaya Shrinutanantaram Sarve Kriyatam Ashumachiram. O Danavas and Daitas, O Dvimurdha, Traksha, Shambara, and Shatabahu, O Hayagriva, Namuchi, Paka, and Ilvala, O Viprachiti, Puloman, Shakuna, and other demons, all of you, kindly hear me attentively, and then act according to my words without delay. Sapatnar Ghatita Kshudrar Brata me daita surit Parshni grahena harina Same napyupadhavanai. My insignificant enemies, the demigods, have combined to kill my very dear and obedient well-wisher, my brother Hiranyaksha. Although the Supreme Lord Viṣṇu is always equal to both of us, namely the demigods and the demons, This time, being devoutly worshipped by the demigods, he has taken their side and helps them to kill Hiranyaksha. Purport. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9.29, Samoham sarvabhuteshu. The Lord is equal to all living entities. Since the demigods and demons are both living entities, how is it possible that the Lord was partial to one class of living beings and opposed to another? Actually, it is not possible for the Lord to be partial. Nonetheless, since the demigods, the devotees, always strictly follow the Supreme Lord's orders, because of sincerity, they are victorious over the demons, who know that the Supreme Lord is Viṣṇu, but do not follow his instructions. Because of constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Viṣṇu, the demons generally attain Sayuja Mukti after death. The demon Hiranyakasipu accused the Lord of being partial because the demigods worshipped him. But in fact, the Lord, like the government, is not partial at all. The government is not partial to any citizen. But if a citizen is law-abiding, he receives abundant opportunities from the state laws to live peacefully and fulfill his real interests. Tasya takta sabhavasya grinirmaya vanokasa bhajantam bhajamanasya balasya vastiratmana machula bhinagrivasya bhurina rudirena vai asrik priyam tarpayishye Bhratarame gatavyata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has given up his natural tendency of equality toward the demons and demigods. Although he is a Supreme Person, now, influenced by Maya, he has assumed the form of a boar to please his devotees, the demigods, just as a restless child leans toward someone. I shall therefore sever Lord Vishnu's head from his trunk by my trident, and with the profuse blood from his body, I shall please my brother Hiranyaksha, who is so fond of sucking blood. Thus shall I too be peaceful. Purport. The defect of the demoniac mentality is expressed in this verse very clearly. Hiranyakashipu thought that Viṣṇu also becomes partial, like a child whose mind is not steady or resolute. The Lord can change his mind at any time, Hiranyakashipu thought, and therefore his words and activities are like those of a child. Actually, because the demons are ordinary human beings, their minds change, and being materially conditioned, they think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is conditioned also. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 9:11, Avajananti mam mudha manushram tanumashritam. Fools deride me when I descend in a human form. Demons always think that Viṣṇu can be killed. Therefore, being absorbed in thoughts of Viṣṇu's form to kill him, at least they have the opportunity to think of Viṣṇu unfavorably. Although they are not devotees, their thinking of Viṣṇu is effective, and thus they generally attain Sayuja Mukti. Because the demons consider the Supreme Lord an ordinary living being, they think that they can kill Lord Viṣṇu, as one might kill an ordinary person. Another fact disclosed herein is that the demons are very much fond of sucking blood. Indeed, all of them are meat-eaters and blood-suckers. Hiranyakashipu accused the Supreme Lord of having a restless mind like that of a small child who can be induced to do anything if he simply offers some cakes and ladus. Indirectly, this indicates the true position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who says in Bhagavad Gita 9:26, Patram pushpam palam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati taraham bhaktupahritam ashnami prayatatmana. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. The Lord accepts the offerings of devotees because of their transcendental love. Because they are in love with the Supreme Lord, they do not eat anything without offering it first to the Lord. The Lord does not hanker for a small leaf or flower. He has enough to eat. Indeed, he is feeding all living entities. Nonetheless, because he is very merciful and is Bhakta Vatsal, very favorable to the devotees, he certainly eats whatever they offer him with love and devotion. This quality should not be misjudged to be childish. The highest quality of the Supreme Lord is that he is Bhakta Vatsal. In other words, He is always extremely pleased with his devotees. As for the word Maya, when used in reference to the dealings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees, this world means affection. The actions of the Lord to favor his devotees are not disqualifications, but signs of natural affection. As for Yudhiṣṭira, or the blood of Lord Viṣṇu, there is no possibility of severing Lord Vishnu's head from his body. There is no question of blood. But the garlands that decorates Vishnu's body is as red as blood. When the demons achieve Sayuja Mukti and leave behind their sinful activities, they are blessed by Vishnu's garland, which is red like blood. After attaining Sayuja Mukti, the demons are sometimes promoted to the Vaikuntha world, where they receive the reward of the Lord's garland prasad. That's really interesting. Tasmin kute hite nashte kritamule vanaspato vitapa iva shushyanti Viṣṇu prana divokkasaha. When the root of a tree is cut and the tree falls down, its branches and twigs automatically dry up. Similarly, when I have killed this diplomatic Viṣṇu, the demigods, for whom Lord Viṣṇu is the life and soul, will lose the source of their life and wither away. Purport. The difference between the demigods and the demons is here explained. The demigods always follow the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the demons simply plan to disturb or kill him. Nevertheless, sometimes the demons very much appreciate the full dependence of the demigods upon the mercy of the Lord. This is indirect glorification of the demigods by the demons. Tavaryata bhuvanyuyam brahmakshatra sameditam sudayadvam tapoyagya swadhyaya vratadanina. While I am engaged in the business of killing Lord Viṣṇu, go down to the planet Earth, which is flourishing due to Brahminical culture and a Kshatriya government. These people engage in austerity, sacrifice, Vedic study, regulated vows, and charity. Destroy all the people thus engaged. Purport. Hiranyakashipu's main purpose was to disturb the demigods. He planned first to kill Lord Viṣṇu, so that with Lord Viṣṇu's death, the demigods would automatically weaken and die. Another of his plans was to disturb the residents of the planet Earth. The peace and prosperity of the residents of Earth and all the other planets were maintained by the Brahmins and Kshatriyas. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 4.13, Chaturvarnyam maya shrishtam guna karma vibhagashaha. According to the three modes of material nature and the work ascribed to them, the four divisions of human society were created by me. On all the planets, there are different types of residents, but the Lord recommends, referring especially to the planet Earth, which is inhabited by human beings, that society be divided into four varnas, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Before the advent of Lord Krishna on this earth, it is understood that the earth was managed by the Brahmins and Kshatriyas. The duty of the Brahmins is to cultivate Shama, peacefulness, Dhamma, self-control, Titiksha, tolerance, Satyam, truthfulness, Shocham, cleanliness, and Arjavan, simplicity, and then to advise the Kshatriya kings how to rule the country or planet. Following the instructions of the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas should engage the populace in austerity, sacrifices, Vedic study, and adherence to the rules and regulations established by Vedic principles. They should also arrange for charity to be given to the Brahmins, sannyasis, and temples. This is the godly arrangement of Brahminical culture. People are inclined to offer yajna because unless sacrifices are offered, there will be insufficient rain. Yagyad bhavati parjanya, Bhagavad Gita 3.14, which will hamper the agricultural activities, parjanyad anasambhava. By introducing Brahminical culture, therefore, a Kshatriya government should engage people in performing yajna, studying the Vedas, and giving charity. Thus the people will receive their necessities of life very easily, and there will be no disturbances in society. In this regard, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 3.12, Ishtan bhogan hivo deva dasyante yagya bhavita Tardatan apradayabhyo yo bhunkte stena eva sa. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, sacrifice, supply all necessities to man. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly a thief. The demigods are authorized supplying agents who act on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Viṣṇu. Therefore, they must be satisfied by the performance of prescribed yajnas. In the Vedas, there are different kinds of yajnas prescribed for different kinds of demigods, but all are ultimately offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For one who cannot understand what the Personality of Godhead is, sacrifice to the demigods is recommended. According to the different material qualities of the persons concerned, different types of yajnas are recommended in the Vedas. Worship of different demigods is also on the same basis, namely according to different qualities. For example, the meat eaters are recommended to worship the goddess Kali, the ghastly form of material nature, and before the goddess, the sacrifice of animals is recommended. But for those in the mode of goodness, the transcendental worship of Viṣṇu is recommended. Ultimately, all yajnas are meant for gradual promotion to the transcendental position. For ordinary men, at least 5 yajnas, known as Pancha Mahayajna, are necessary. One should know, however, that all the necessities of life that human society requires are supplied by the demigod agents of the Lord. No one can manufacture anything. Consider, for example, all the eatables of human society. These eatables include fruits, vegetables, milk, and sugar for persons in the mode of goodness, and also eatables for the non-vegetarians, such as meats, none of which can be manufactured by men. Then again, take for example heat, light, water, and air, which are also necessities of life. None of them can be manufactured by human society. Without the Supreme Lord, there can be no profuse sunlight, moonlight, rainfall, or breeze, without which no one can live. Obviously, our life is dependent on supplies from the Lord. Even for our manufacturing enterprises, we require so many raw materials like metal, sulfur, mercury, manganese, and so many essentials, all of which are supplied by the agents of the Lord with the purpose that we should make proper use of them to keep ourselves fit and healthy for the purpose of self-realization, leading to the ultimate goal of life, namely, liberation from the material struggle for existence. That was a long sentence. This aim of life is attained by performance of yajnas. If we forget the purpose of human life and simply take supplies from the agents of the Lord for sense gratification and become more and more entangled in material existence, which is not the purpose of creation, certainly we become thieves, and therefore we are punished by the laws of material nature. A society of thieves can never be happy, for they have no aim in life. The gross materialist thieves have no ultimate goal of life. They are simply directed to sense gratification. Nor do they have knowledge of how to perform yajnas. Lord Chaitanya, however, inaugurated the easiest performance of yajna, namely the Sankirtan yajna, which can be performed by anyone in the world who accepts the principles of Krishna consciousness. Hiranyakasipu plans to kill the inhabitants of earth so that yajna would stop and the demigods, being disturbed, would die automatically when Lord Viṣṇu, the Yajneshwar, was killed. These were the demoniac plans of Hiranyakasipu, who is expert in such activities. Viṣṇur dvija kriyo mulo yagyo dharma... let's do it slower. Yagyo dharma maya puman devarshi pitri bhutanam dharmasya cha parayanam. The basic principle of Brahminical culture is to satisfy Lord Viṣṇu, the personification of sacrificial and ritualistic ceremonies. Lord Viṣṇu is the personified reservoir of all religious principles, and he is the shelter of all the demigods, the great Pitas, and the people in general. When the Brahmins are killed, no one will exist to encourage the Kshatriyas to perform yajnas, and thus the demigods, not being appeased by yajna, will automatically die. Purport. Since Viṣṇu is a central point of Brahminical culture, Hiranyakashipu's plan was to kill Viṣṇu, for if Viṣṇu were killed, naturally the Brahminical culture would also be lost. With Brahminical culture lost, yajna would no longer be performed, and for want of yajna, the regular distribution of rainfall would cease, yajna bhavati parjanya. Thus there would be disturbances all over the world, and naturally the demigods would be defeated. From this verse we get a clear indication of how human society is disturbed when the Vedic Aryan civilization is killed, and the Vedic ritualistic ceremonies performed by the Brahmins are stopped. Kalo Shudra Sambhava. Because the population of the modern world consists mostly of Shudras, the Brahminical culture is now lost and is extremely difficult to re-establish in a proper way. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya has recommended the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, which will revive Brahminical culture very easily. Harer Nama Nameva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva Gatiranyata. Because of the increment in demoniac population, people will have lost Brahminical culture. Nor is there a Kshatriya government. Instead, the government is a democracy in which any Shudra can be voted into taking up the governmental reins and capture the power to rule. Because of the poisonous effects of Kali Yuga, the Shastra, Bhagavad Gita 1-13 says, Dasyu Prayeshu Rajasu. The government will adopt the policies of Dasyus, or plunderers. Thus there will be no instructions from the Brahmanas, and even if there are Brahminical instructions, there will be no Kshatriya rulers who can follow them. Aside from Satya Yuga, even formerly in the days when the demons were flourishing, Hiranyakashipu planned to destroy the Brahminical culture and the Kshatriya government, and thus create chaos all over the world. Although in Satya Yuga this plan was very difficult to execute, in Kali Yuga, which is full of Shudras and demons, the Brahminical culture is lost and can be revived only by the chanting of the Maha Mantra. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement, or the Hare Krishna movement, has been inaugurated to revive Brahminical culture very easily so that the people may become happy and peaceful in this life and prepare for elevation in the next. In this regard, Śrīla Madhvacharya quotes this verse from the Brahmanda Puran. Vipra yagyadi mulam tu harir itya suram matam harir eva hisarvasya mulam samyam mato nripa. O king, the demons think that Hari, Lord Viṣṇu, exists because of the Brahmins and yajna, but factually, Hari is the cause of everything, including the Brahmins and yajna. Therefore, through the popularizing of Hari Kirtan, or the Sankirtan movement, the Brahminical culture and Kshatriya government will automatically come back, and people will be extremely happy. Okay, it's 8 o'clock, just turned 8. But we're just reading up to this verse 12. I'm really sorry, guys, for going over time, but this will be quick. Yatra yatra dvija gavo veda varna shrama kriya tam tam jana padam yata sandipa yata vrishchata. Immediately go wherever there is good protection for the cows and Brahmins, and wherever the Vedas are studied in terms of the Varnashram principles. Set fire to those places and cut from the roots the trees there, which are the source of life. Purport. The picture of a proper human civilization is indirectly described here. In a perfect human civilization, there must be a class of men fully trained as perfect Brahmins. Similarly, there must be Kshatriyas to rule the country very nicely according to the injunctions of the Shastras, and there must be Vaishyas who can protect the cows. The word Gava indicates that cows should be given protection. Because the Vedic civilization is lost, cows are not protected, but instead indiscriminately killed in slaughterhouses. Such are the acts of demons. Therefore, this is a demoniac civilization. The Varnashram Dharma mentioned here is essential for human civilization. Unless there is a Brahmin to guide, a Kshatriya to rule perfectly, and a perfect Vaishya to produce food and protect the cows, how will people live peacefully? It is impossible. Another point is that trees also should be given protection. During its lifetime, a tree should not be cut for industrial enterprises. In Kali Yuga, trees are indiscriminately and unnecessarily cut for industry, in particular for paper mills that manufacture a profuse quantity of paper for the publication of demoniac propaganda, nonsensical literature, huge quantities of newspapers, and many other paper products. This is a sign of demoniac civilization. The cutting of trees is prohibited unless necessary for the service of Lord Viṣṇu. Yagyartar karmanonyatra lokalyam karma bandhana. Work done as a sacrifice for Lord Viṣṇu must be performed, otherwise work binds one to this material world. But if the paper mills stop producing paper, one may argue, how can our ISKCON literature be published? The answer is that the paper mills should manufacture paper only for the publication of ISKCON literature, because ISKCON literature is published for the service of Lord Viṣṇu. This literature clarifies our relationship with Lord Viṣṇu, and therefore the publication of ISKCON literature is the performance of yajna. Yajñārtat karmaṇonyatra lokayam karma bandhana. Yajna must be performed as indicated by the superior authorities. Thus, cutting of trees simply to manufacture paper for the publication of unwanted literature is the greatest sinful act. Alright. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Srila Gurudeva Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad Rashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Mahabhagavat Srila Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shar Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund Ki Jai. Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Vo Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashaja Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhyai Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams. That's a good point, Rup Manjari. Alright, Dandavat pranams everybody. See you all tomorrow. Sorry I went overtime today.